In the heart of South America, the steamy border between Argentina and Paraguay hides in the mist thrown up by the massive Iguazu Falls. There's only one clearing for miles. In it, neatly pressed, 36 of the world's toughest adventurers line up to start the 1994 Camel Trophy, the ultimate in four-wheel adventure. Stirred by millions of liters of water thundering over the falls, 18 national flags flew over Iguazu. Among them, for the first time in international sport, South Africa's new emblem. In Turkey 2 months earlier, there was the traditional weeding out process to find the best amateur adventurers in the world. From thousands of original hopefuls, each nation nominated 4 possibles to fight it out at international selections.
We were looking at originally about 18,000 people, and to come out and now represent South Africa is a fantastic opportunity, and really it's been a great sensation for myself. Personally, it'll be a major satisfaction for myself to be able to do very well on the competition with my partner. It's certainly been something ecstatic to be able to get as far as we have now.
I've been following it since 1981, since the first time I used the Range Rovers. That's when I became aware of it, and then I finally decided I've got to give it a go and apply. Knowing what the route was going to be through Argentina, etc., and I thought I've got to give it a go because it just appeals to me so much. But it's just a unique experience, so I think that's what pushes you through, hopefully to the end.
A 50-50 chance is all they had. A team in Camel Trophy is only too strong, and participants had just 3 days and nights to stake their claim on a place in the convoy. 72 hours to think more clearly, drive more smoothly, work better, and lead with more conviction than their countrymen and women. For the first time in 15 years of Camel Trophy, 3 women made it as far as international selections. 2 were from France, 1 was from Scandinavia. The law of averages dictated that at least 1 would make history and make it to Camel Trophy. But both Corinne Duray, a French mountaineer, and Crystal Persson, a Swedish lawyer, outperformed the men for the one-off chance at the world's toughest four-wheel drive adventure.
I think this is the biggest moment in my life, definitely. I mean, it will be the biggest event in my life, undoubtedly.
I've been sleepless for many nights before I got here, and you make pictures of what it's going to be like, but it's not the same. I mean, when you once get here, it's something different. Well, now I just want to get going. We're very exciting about the special tasks, and we've been studying the program.
Well, it's always been a wish to take part in a Camel Trophy, and it's just finally a dream come true. Years of training, preparation, and months of looking forward to the event, and finally here in Argentina, ready for the start. Apprehensive, obviously excited, and just ready to get on with it.
There's a place for pomp and ceremony everywhere, even in the jungle. Just before the start, the teams took their last showers for 3 weeks. The next hotel is 2,500 kilometers away, on the other side of South America. The waterfalls that starred in the film The Mission are not the highest or the widest, but they are the most spectacular in the world. In the heart of the jungle, the Parana River drops off the planet for 200 feet into a tropical cauldron. Somewhere at the bottom, the water turns to steam and the muddy river into a torrent so clean it sparkles. The South Americans call Iguazu Garganta del Diablo, or the Devil's Throat. The Spanish, who discovered Iguazu for Europe, thought it was like sailing off the edge of the world. The Guarani Indians said the falls appeared after a warrior took a local girl prisoner and sailed off down Parana with her. The gods were furious and made the riverbed drop away. The couple tumbled to the bottom, where the girl became a rock and the warrior a tree. No one told the Camel Trophy participants the tale as they charged down a path by the falls. Tied to a tree that was maybe once a warrior, and nudging rocks that could have been a maiden, were a fleet of inflatable boats. Nothing else but transport down 140 kilometers of the piranha-infested Parana. El Dorado. Argentina is far from an El Dorado. Black mud lines the river, and snakes live on the banks where the Camel Trophy had decided to camp for its first night under the stars. Participants threw thoughts of luxuries to the wind and waded into the first of the event's competitive special tasks, getting a pair of Land Rover Discoveries across a ditch and back. Night was falling, and this was the first time the teams had been thrown together as one unit. In 2 groups, 9 teams apiece, talking in a dozen mother tongues, they had as much trouble coordinating their mouths as their minds.
Well, what we're trying to do is obviously, we all know what the objective is, but everybody's got several different ideas. Communication problem, as always, with such an international team event. But I think we're overcoming it now, and it's going to be all right. We can use the winch, the vehicle winch, and just tow them across. We tried manpower, but we were not strong enough, so...
Without slithering, so we have to use a rope at the beginning, and then we tow it over. Because if it gets slipped, then it's gone.
We want to build a bridge to get a car over here and then backwards again. So we set up a plan and now we're working at it.
Okay, that's it. That's secure.
Building the log bridge brought out the best brawn and brains in both groups. In a case of more haste, less speed, Klaus Hass's brains were those of a winner.
It's very successful at this stage, but we're competing against another team that's slightly ahead of us, but we feel that we can make up the time when we turn around the vehicle, because we believe our construction is slightly safer and more secure. So we'll make up the time on the return trip.
Driving on logs is like walking the tightrope. Balancing 5 feet off the ground in a 2-ton vehicle left no time for error, but winning the task left no time for caution. Mark, Crystal and Edie were all in the slower team. Their Polish teammates took too long crossing the log bridge. The pain of defeat came with a cheer from the other group. First back across the river. First to the food at an impromptu international barbecue of Argentine beef, the country's tastiest export. The teams snatched 6 hours of precious sleep before dawn. In the daylight, El Dorado looked like a better place. The mist might be picture postcard pretty, but the second group task was risky. There was already typhoid and other nasties in the river.
The object was to recover the gearbox, obviously, that had fallen into the bottom of the riverbed. We made a flotation device, lifted it up. All the teams worked really well together, and we achieved the objective in quite a good time. It was really good. It's good fun.
The gearbox was light enough in the river, but the teams had to get it onto a raft and then to the bank. Klaus had no intention of finishing second again.
I think at the end of the day, it boils down to building a construction which is very suitable, which is stable, and making sure that it's a solid piece of equipment before transporting any equipment, and it went very well. And the time given was over an hour, but we did it within a lot less time than at half the time. It certainly was a difficult task from the outset, but it seemed to have come together very, very quickly. We finally got a task that we thought we did very, very well in as a group of teams. The guys are a little bit despondent because things could have gone better. Weather conditions changed a lot of the tasks for the individual teams.
Well, this time we went all right in the group task, I think. This is the best group task I think we had. Very good. You're getting used to it.
In the 2 group tasks, it was win or lose, but there were 7 other special tasks for the teams to finish alone before they could escape El Dorado. Tadashi Io hates running, but one task involved 5 miles of orienteering and canoeing. At least rain had turned down the heat. Klaus and his teammate Etienne van Eden are human trains. They just kept on going, all but ignoring the river in their way. Crystal admitted she is not as strong as the men, and the Scandinavians suffered on the physical tasks, coming second to last in the canoes. Ollie Kangas was her teammate. The Finn is a manager for rock bands back home, But dealing with prima donna musicians is nothing compared with Camel Trophy. The Greeks had to fight their way past a poisonous snake on the run, dropping the team to 9th place. They were happy to be alive. The Germans found the flora more challenging than the fauna.
Well, the river is not very deep, so you have to get out. You have to get to the curve down there. There's the point 12, and it's covered with trees and this stuff, and then you have to get out and have to get back. But very tricky river. Okay.
Ollie and Crystal were not the strongest team, but their enthusiasm proved to be the best.
I think it was really good that I went with Ollie. I think we are a very good team, and I think we are the best team of the 4 of us who went to Turkey. So.
Well, I think the first days before you're getting used to it, I think it will be hard. I mean, I think it will be very hard before your body gets used to it, before you get used to your doings every day. I mean, the ritual and the team. But I think after this day, I think you will enjoy it.
Mark Cullum is a firefighter. He should have been fighting fit, but the heat and the strain of swimming fully clothed hit the Englishman hard. Less than a week earlier, he and the other Brit, Damien Taft, were stuck in the depths of a cold European winter.
It's a hard climb up, and it was a long way. It's bloody hard. Okay. You right, Damien? You right, mate? Hey? You right?
All right.
Camel Trophy is all about four-wheel driving. Over half of the first series of tasks at El Dorado involved driving. Driving in mud, driving over rocks, recovering the discoveries from holes, driving down riverbeds, avoiding the rocks and against the clock. The tyres fought for grip, and the teams fought for points. The Scandinavians predicted they wouldn't do well in the special tasks, and they didn't. But at least they weren't last. Their driving had made up for their lack of physical strength. The Swiss lumberjack Stefan Weber and his partner Bruno Nubler were way out in front of the Russians and ahead of the amiable Spaniards. No thanks to the insect life at El Dorado, the teams had been itching to leave their temporary camp for the open road across South America. 34 discoveries long and stretched out over 2 miles of dirt road, the Camel Trophy convoy snaked out of El Dorado, braking for the border with Paraguay. From showroom clean 3 days ago, the discoveries were now broken in, covered in the required amount of mud, sporting a few battle scars, and packed with supplies for 18 days. The Italians bought pasta, the Spanish bought eggs and milk from a farmer, the Brits were stuffed with granola bars, the Americans with Hershey bars, the Russians bought salted cheese, the Poles a splash of vodka for campfire camaraderie. Ollie set up an in-car music system. The Hungarians sang to each other. The South Africans discussed the future of their nation. This was the United Nations on 4 wheels, the spirit of Camel Trophy. From El Dorado, the convoy would head west out of the thick jungle, across the wet swamplands of Paraguay, back into Argentina for day after day of dusty driving on the dry Chaco plains, over the Andes into the Atacama Desert, and the finish on the Pacific coast of Chile. 18 days, 3 countries and 2,500 kilometers. The Parana River was becoming a pain. Again, it flowed across the path of the Camel Trophy, this time too wide to do anything but ferry across. Paraguay is landlocked, but like Switzerland, it has a navy. Its flagship was inhabited by ferocious killer bees, stinging dozens of team members and the doctor. The navy tugged the ferry across the murky waters to Never Never Land, where roads ended and muddy tracks took over. Real Camel Trophy country. The tracks the far side were as waterlogged as the Parana, only the fish were missing. The locals call this the road to hell, except hell is cooler than central Paraguay. With every metre the mud got wetter. Puddles became ponds, ponds became lakes. The road became a sea of mud. If it was the last thing they did, the teams were there to get through the mire. The sight of cattle on the road made the task seem easier, but cows and gauchos are about the only things that dare tackle the road to hell. For 5 months of the year, no wheeled vehicles even venture near the place. It didn't take the teams long to work out why.
According to the map, the very beginning of today's route is going to be kind of wet. Well, this is a big map and sort of a road map, but anyway, it looks swampy.
Swampy was Ollie's understatement of the year. The road to hell turned from bumpy to a wet roller coaster ride. The Discoveries bucked and kicked like the local cattle. Their drivers held on like the gauchos for dear life. Below the surface of the water, deep ruts sank up to 3 feet deep. The front of the Discoveries disappeared underwater like boats in a storm. Some holes got too deep even for the Discoveries. With eternal optimism, the teams got out of the vehicles and got stuck into digging the ruts out of the road. In 3 hours, the convoy only crept forward 300 meters.
Yeah, certainly at the start of the convoy this morning, we were expecting a bit of trouble. This is the first major obstacle, a lot of mud, soft sand, water, long haul through us over here now. None of the convoys through yet. We've got to prepare the road. It's going to be a difficult one, but we'll get through. The spirit is very good. The guys are ready. They're working hard, digging hard. As you can see, they've already done a lot of work digging, preparing the road. And the guys are enjoying it thoroughly.
This is not nice. Well, this looks really, really bad. Struggling around. Oh. Finally!
Every hour, a new hole had to be crossed. Mud was everywhere, on the road, in their boots, in their ears and in their nightmares. Still, their sense of humour survived. Bringing a new meaning to teamwork, the convoy split into work groups, getting one vehicle through each obstacle at a time. Those up front had to deal with virgin mud. Those behind had to deal with the holes made bigger by the cars ahead. At one point, the convoy stretched out for 10 miles. From 18 separate units, the convoy gelled into one team of workers. The sun baked the mud hard onto their skin and clothes and made the bodywork of the Discoveries hot enough to cook on. Even the sun couldn't dry out the road fast enough to make the job easier. All it did was to make the task harder and slower. Still relatively fresh after only 4 days on the road, the teams were fighting fit and insanely keen to overcome the sea of mud and water. Edi Weiretter, a locksmith from Germany, was in his element. This was what he had dreamed of night after night since he was picked for the Camel Trophy.
Well, I think Camel's Trophy has started now. When everybody has done this before, but working as a team, like here, all the cars together, all the teams, and it's a lot of fun, and even if it's tough work for the guys, so just enjoy it, no other way. We didn't know what's happening at the front, so we just have been told to go back, but I think they have flown over with the helicopter and they just saw a very large, a huge sea or lake or whatever, and it makes no sense to go through it. But now it's going to be very good. It's fun here, but if you have to go through like this 10 days.
From the air, the road to hell looked more like the Great Lakes. The water was never ending. The convoy might never have got through, even after 3 weeks of teamwork, and then reaching Chile would have been impossible. The decision to turn around came as no surprise. The thought of battling with the same mud holes all over again wasn't a pleasant one, but no one complained. The drivers just turned their Discoveries around and headed back into the same holes again and again. The Camel Trophy machine by now was well oiled. With each hole came a new burst of energy. Even dusk didn't slow things down. The teams kept rolling. 20 hours after the battle began, the convoy was back where it started. On the edge of the region the Paraguayans call the impenetrable. The camp was silent that night. The inch-by-inch crawl was over, but the teams felt exhausted. They needn't have worried. The next day things were just as bad. The road from Paraguay back to Argentina was a 200-kilometer-long mudslide. No more than 10 feet wide, the road was heavily cambered and covered in more mud. It took no prisoners. To place even one wheel off the middle of the road ended in disaster. In just 12 hours, the Dutch team alone slid off the road and into the undergrowth 4 times. For hours on end, the finest and most delicate car control was needed to stay on course, as Klaus found out.
Just a quick puncture, quick change of tyre, but going well at this stage. First one, unfortunately, hopefully the last, but it's going all right. Quite testing, it was long, deep, muddy sections, and quite challenging to the individual drivers. It went very well though. That's very interesting.
Fixing a tyre barefoot was more of a problem.
There was a lot of rain yesterday, equipment was drying out. We went to bed, thought the fire was out, the boots were getting a little bit warmer, closer to the fire, and in the night we thought somebody was making coffee, and we realized there were a couple of flames going by, and it was 4 sets of boots that we lost last night, completely burnt out. We only got the rubber soles left, but that's the way it goes. We have to make do with what we've got now, yeah.
A third of the way across South America, the focus was now on crossing each hurdle. The mud had been a backbreaker. Now the challenge was the Chaco, the endless prairies in Argentina's far northwest. In less than a week, the teams changed from clean, normal people to a united band of dirty comrades. Thoughts of luxuries like baths and fresh food were distant.
I think, especially the first 2 days, I think people has problem in getting used to be dirty. I think some people have got problems to cope with that, but I think now they have overcome it, like now when we have been here for a few days. But in the beginning I know that some people really had problems with being dirty and all the dust.
Some villages or little towns where the only way to get there is a dirt road.
Yeah, probably. I haven't been that up north, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah?
I'm really bad. My travel experiences in Sweden are really bad. I haven't been more than 1,000 kilometers up. And I mean,
you haven't been to Kiruna, never?
No, never.
Well, I have.
So it's half Sweden I've been to, not further up.
The convoy made good time across the Chaco, travelling the farthest distance in one day since the 1992 Camel Trophy. At the end of the 18-hour day, the convoy fought through bushes long and sharp enough to rip a tyre, just to find a campsite on the banks of the river Pasaje.
It was a good stop here. Everything could be cleaned up a little because we had to stop in the mud overnight the last 2 days because we were not scheduled. And everyone was tired yesterday, but we had a small birthday party. It was okay. We liked it very much.
The first shave in a week. The first wash since Iguazu was heaven enough. But seeing the foothills of the Andes for the first time was even more rewarding. The minute their ears went pop, the teams knew the great ascent had begun. For a week, the sole objective of the Camel Trophy was to cross the Andes, stopping only for 2 days to build a mountain research center near Payogasta. Climbing thousands of meters a day, the convoy snaked into South America's wildest mountains. With every metre climbed, the air got thinner and cooler, the engines hotter and wearier. Drinking 6 litres of water a day, the teams tried to fight off altitude sickness. At 3,000 metres, heads were pounding and stomachs turning in the thin air. If that wasn't enough, the sheer drops off the edge of the tracks were potentially deadly. One car was saved from a 300-metre fall by a bush a metre high.
Because we've been climbing so high, the vehicles have been working extra hard and consequently they're overheating. And with the advice is run the heaters on, although it's still very hot here, keep the heaters on, the windows open and take it steady with the vehicles. Watch the temperature gauge. I've never seen anything like this before. Mountaineering is my hobby and I spend a lot of time in the mountains, but this is just absolutely amazing and the best is yet to come. I mean, we're still climbing higher and higher. I'm wondering when the road is going to end. We're still going up and up. It's great. It really is great. I love it. I'm in my element. It's just a great atmosphere and really enjoying it. It's really good fun.
A week ago, the route was bogged with mud. Now there wasn't water enough to keep much alive. Only cacti and prickly grasses survived this high. As for humans, only the hardiest hill farmers live in the mountains. Not surprisingly, when summer is 40 degrees hot and the winter -20 cold. It's a world on top of the world. A place where only the toughest survive and where the brave dare tread. Perfect for Camel Trophy. In fierce conditions, the participants worked without a break all day to find the right track across the Sierras. Teams fanned out across the burnt landscape in search of a way through the washouts. The Discoveries bridged the washouts and gorges, as well as they had forded the mud a week before, but the rocky holes were the size of an office block and appeared from nowhere. Twice a team almost disappeared into the chasms. At night, navigating became worse. Even a full moon didn't help much. The team split up, half out on foot looking for tracks, the others creeping behind. By 2 o'clock in the morning, they found Peogasta, the site for the Andean Research Center. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the teams had slept and started working on the Environmental Research Center for the University of Salta. The center was designed for research into the ecosystem of this area of great significance to the nation. It is the first of its kind in the Andes, but the second built by Camel Trophy participants over the last 2 years. It is a valuable contribution to the nation and international scientists. For the teams, the biggest problem was to switch from driving mode to building mode.
Between the joints, to eliminate the wind and the dust coming in there. On the outside is not necessary, because as soon as you put the two walls together, it's at the two joints. That's all we require.
It certainly means a lot to myself and also the individual guys from each individual country. It's putting back something into the environment after going through the environment and taking in its natural beauty. The project involved here is establishing a research center for the Salta University for the Andes group, and I think the guys are really pleased to be able to put something back into it because they're making use of the terrain here, and then again creating a structure and making a successful project for them to further their studies here. It's really it's a wonderful feeling for us to be able to do that for them.
There.
Yeah, but no, that's not going to be too big.
Yeah.
By late afternoon, the building was already being knocked into shape.
We had a discussion how we should make it fit, if we were going to use glue or silicone and many ideas, and then we had to sort of agree on one. Yeah, I think it's just the least we can do, and I think we enjoy it and the locals enjoy it. I think it's good. Very, very good. there will be work done 24 hours. Yeah, I think some got a little bit dizzy when they don't drink enough. I think that you have to be very, very careful with drinking all the time. And then, of course, sunburned. Many.
Some of the countries had expert architects and builders for teams. They directed, the others followed, in complete trust. At nightfall, the teams swapped shifts. The second line had the benefit of the cool evening, but the pressure of working in the dark. As the first group took 6 hours rest, the others began digging a drainage ditch.
We're digging a hole for a septic tank, and it has to be 4 feet deep. And, well, it's hard work, as you see. We get thirsty and it's very dusty. Well, the surface is very hard and very dusty. Lots of rocks and some thick roots. But as you go deeper, it's getting smooth and soft.
By the small hours, the walls were up, the roof on, and the final bolts fixed in. The first group were back on call and keen to finish the work they had started 14 hours earlier. The architect, Rafael Requena, stayed up all day and all night to supervise. He had doubts about the unskilled workforce, but gradually warmed to the team of multinational builders. Daylight revealed the almost complete research center and a band of tired workers. Until now, breakfast had been a hurried affair, eaten in a tent or in the car. For the first time, the convoy had a chance to take the start of the day with a little less speed. At 6, the second team came back for the morning shift, but the building was finished and work had to begin on an access bridge and a road for the center. Temperatures were up to 35 degrees as the digging began in the riverbed, digging for the bridge's foundations. A few participants almost fainted. With only shovels and pickaxes, the teams had to shift over a ton of soil and stones. There was only a trickle of water in the river then, but in winter it could turn into a raging torrent. A flimsy bridge would wash away.
The conditions around here, or the terrain, is not that ideal, so we have to prepare a bridge for any access for vehicles and that, and it's going pretty well. There's a lot of hard work involved. We have to dig thorough holes here, plant some concrete pillars, and then lay the bridge, and it's going pretty well at this stage.
By midday, the rotor had fallen apart. All the teams mucked in to finish the work by nightfall. The next day, the convoy had to be back on the road again. On the road, the teams hardly talked or met. Relationships were built on a series of fleeting hellos. At Peogasta, fleeting friendships formed on the convoy had a chance to gel. For once, the sociable participants had a chance to talk. The stop also gave the teams a chance to cook real food and sleep a real night's sleep.
Okay, whoa. Slower. Okay, a little bit more.
In the riverbed, 6 concrete supports were wheeled into place and wooded planks laid on top for the roadway. It had to be strong enough to hold a Land Rover Defender. The Camel Trophy Management donated one to the university for field research.
Okay.
It's just great to be part of this international event. I mean, there's so many countries taking part, there's so many countries wish to take part. We've been working almost 30 hours non-stop, very little sleep, not much food. We're trying to get as much fluid in as possible, but we're always dehydrated, extremely tired. It's hard physical work, anyway, hard graft. It's built out of concrete piers. We've got very heavy wooden construction spans, and then we're using locally bought timber, hardwood timber, as the driving boards, and it's all bolted together very rigid. It's hard work, but if you want to have a go, it's worth it.
In the afternoon, the final touches were made to the bridge. By dusk, the research centre was ready. By dark, the keys had been handed over to the Vice-Chancellor, and by midnight, the teams had celebrated. By dawn, the convoy rolled onwards and upwards, up as high as you can drive in the world, higher than Mont Blanc, half as high as Everest, to Abra El Akai, 5 kilometers above sea level. Twisting around endless hairpins, the convoy climbed from 2,500 meters to almost 5,000 meters in just 85 kilometers. The only town on the way was San Antonio de los Cobres. A handful of its tiny population turned out to cheer on the convoy. Wild llamas grazed on the slopes of the Los Gemelos volcano as the Camel Trophy passed by. The drive to the top of South America took forever. The snow on the summit sparkled around every bend, but getting there took hours. Each switchback seemed to go nowhere.
It's marvelous. I've never been this high up, never. But when I walked very fast towards some other cars, then you feel a little bit dizzy. But I haven't got headache or something. But if you do something, you get very tired.
As you see on the sign, we are 4,895 meters high, and this is higher than the highest mountain of Europe. You know, it's the Mont Blanc, and it's quite. It's a difficult region up there because the altitude sickness starts at 4,500, maybe 4,000 feet. And I heard some of the guys have some problem with their head or whatever. And well, we are going down now to the coast, to the Atacama, and I think this was the highest point, so we will see what's coming.
Between the Andes and the ocean is the Atacama, the world's driest desert. For hundreds of miles there's no vegetation, just sand and rock. It took 2 days to come down off the mountains into Atacama. Every meter closer to the sea, the air warmed up and the oxygen got thicker. In the heart of the desert, the heat was fierce and the dust heavy. At the back of the convoy, the teams were driving blind in a fog of bull dust, so thick that the Canary Islanders almost drove off the edge of a cliff. The Atacama's like a furnace during the day, but at night it's icy cold. A campfire was about the only way to stay warm as the thermometer hit freezing.
We kill ourselves. Yeah. The first time runs so fast, the other one following, and everyone is hanging around, you know.
Originally, 70,000 people entered through application.
17.
70.
No. 70,000.
Yeah.
Can you believe, Paddy? Can you believe that? 70,000.
Yeah. 10 on the final. What
have you done?
And then we had our own little thing with the orienteering and the driving and the mechanical and the obstacle courses. And I must admit, our obstacle courses were far severe compared to those in Turkey and that. You know, it was something incredible.
They were more difficult.
A lot more difficult.
You say that though. I think we've been pretty lucky on this, haven't we?
Because
in Turkey it was
been easy.
Yeah, I think so too.
But our obstacle course.
Etienne,
what's your problem, eh?
can you please put your shoes a bit close to the fire? The helicopter may bring new ones.
These ones are completely fireproof.
The campfire wasn't just for warmth. The Italians were sick of heating boil-in-the-bag food on the engine of their Discovery, so they dug deep into their tuck boxes to find a stash of pasta and Mama's sauce, which tasted even better cooked on the fire. Crossing the Andes had been psychological as well as physical. The Camel Trophy was far from over, but reaching Hornitos on the coast at last looked a possibility. Looking back was more daunting than looking ahead. For 2 weeks, the Camel Trophy convoy had been rolling across South America. For 10 days, that never-ending journey had been in Argentina, and still Argentina stretched out ahead, right to the border with Chile at Socompa. If it had taken 10 days to cross Argentina, getting across Chile could only take 10 hours. The teams had already eaten enough dust to last a lifetime. To make breathing more bearable, the convoy stretched right out, 30 kilometers from beginning to end, a streak of dust across the Atacama. The only other way over the Andes from Argentina into Chile is on the train to the clouds. It's the wildest train ride in the world. The train followed the dusty track over the border. In the 70s, it was the safest way to travel. Argentina and Chile were at war, and the border was mined. Driving from Argentina to Chile is still dangerous. The Chileans left out a wrecked car as a warning. If the mines don't get you, the climate will. It hasn't rained in the Atacama since 1926. Each team had enough water for a week. In the heat, the human body needs at least 5 liters a day. Food was not nearly as important, and there's nothing to look forward to in a daily diet of boil-in-the-bag, biscuits and cheese. In the heart of the desert, but only 50 miles from the sea, the teams camped for the last series of special tasks. Nothing like the ones in the mud at El Dorado, and after 2 weeks of non-stop driving, enough to finish off the weaker teams. Mark Cullum cleaned the dust off his Discovery, ready for the first task. A regularity drive, from invisible grid reference to invisible grid reference, strictly in order. The tasks weren't won in the car, more by looking at the map before they started. The trick was in the magic of the GPS compass. Looking like something from a science fiction film, it took readings from half a dozen or so satellites and came up with your exact point on the planet.
You got it? Yes. Now edit. Press edit again to save. Save in memory.
In teams of 6 discoveries, the drivers headed for their invisible coordinates in the desert. A marshal in one of the cars was meant to observe the navigation challenge and tell the teams when they had found the right spots. The groups crisscrossed the Atacama all day, driving up and down dunes, trying to find a way across gullies, just to get the elusive map coordinates. One group took 3 hours to find the first point, going round and round the same dune to find a way to the top. Anyone taking a shortcut ended up stuck in a gully or up to the axles in soft sand. Not all teams agreed on how to navigate. The Swiss, who were still leading after El Dorado, had a big falling out. The Italians also. Only one group managed to get all their GPS points in the right order. The Canary Islanders even got stuck in a hole and waved their group away, thinking that they could get out on their own. But this task was not about driving fast. The idea was about working as a unit. Even for the best teams, finding the coordinates was not easy.
Are we approximately there? That's coming to you.
Yeah.
Which way are we facing now?
Oh, we're facing north. North up there. What I'd do is get up on that bank and just skate around. This is where you want John Eve to skate around. Yeah.
The task went on all day. Klaus Haas wished it had gone into the night.
It was a feeling that one can't really describe. You had to be there to experience that. Not even photographs would be able to give you that same feeling or that same visual, because it was something fantastic. And to be able to ride through that terrain under those conditions with the various other competitors was really an opportunity of a lifetime, and it was a fantastic feeling, and was some wonderful sights. It was really beautiful.
Last one in, time counts. Go on, come on, up to start. Well done, guys, well done.
If the navigation gave the teams a buzz, the next morning's early orienteering run gave them a shock. Enrique Perez had almost driven his car over a cliff 2 days earlier, but he came closer to danger when he collapsed on the 8-kilometer run.
He hasn't got much skin fat, as you can see. It's an early morning kickoff. It was a 5:30 start. Fairly strenuous, 11k, so 11 kilometres. So it's taken it out of him. And he hasn't got the sugar reserve. He had a meal last night of chicken and rice and some water in the morning, but that's about all. So we're giving him glucose to drink. We've given him an intravenous glucose line to bring his blood pressure up. It's doing well. He's warmer. He's cramping less now.
The sight of Perez being given first aid shocked the teams. They had lived for 3 weeks under the impression they were invincible. But within an hour, they were all back out under the sun for the last tasks.
Come on, bang this down.
The hardest was getting a deep enough hole into the rock-hard desert to sink a ground anchor and winch a 2-ton Discovery up a steep slope. For the British team, it was their best result.
We've performed well as a team. We've had some good teams to work with as well. We've been a little bit unlucky in some of the tasks, penalised by a few silly little errors by myself and Damien, my team friend. But at the end of the day, we've done the best we could do in the circumstances.
The Germans weren't having the same luck. One task was driving to the top of a hill and down again in exactly the same time. Edie and Ingo used the beat of their wipers to time their runs, but it didn't work too well. The super-efficient Swiss taped their run on a dictaphone and played it back as they drove down. Their time was almost perfect.
Nobody knows that it turns out so hard and so difficult up there, because the cars, the wheels are turning and the tracks, they're getting wider and wider, and the ground is getting soft, you know. And well, I've been a little bit to the right. The car slips like into the gully. Hopefully it's gonna get better now. There are still 2 tasks, and maybe we can make some points.
With 2 tasks to go, there was still everything to fight for, and Swiss cleverness to beat. Swiss ingenuity didn't last forever. By the final task, the lumberjack and the businessman had been pipped to the Special Task Award by the consistent Spaniards, Carlos Martinez and Jorge Corella. The Canary Islanders, the Americans and the Hungarians filled the rest of the top 5 spots. The last 50 kilometers of the 2,500 across South America looked more like a desert caravan than the world's toughest 4-wheel drive adventure. There was no avoiding the bull dust this time on the final sweep through the Atacama, down onto the beach at Hornitos. For the first time in 3 weeks, the Camel Trophy could go no further.
Well, it was great coming through to the final end line. It was a fantastic feeling having to achieve the objectives of the Camel Trophy now. But yeah, all good things must come to an end. And it happens too quickly, but it's been a fantastic experience, and thoroughly enjoyed it from start to finish. No regrets whatsoever, and the experiences obtained were, you know, undescribable. It's really fantastic.
We need the others for safety. We've got so we can prepare the next one.
Okay.
Okay.
The South Africans made history by taking their new flag to an international sports event for the first time and competing in Camel Trophy for the first time. For 3 weeks, the South African pair were always mucking in, leading the other teams and willing the convoy forward. Gathered all together for the last night in South America, it was no surprise that all the other teams voted Klaus Haas and Etienne van Eden the winners of the Team Spirit Award.
Yes! It's undescribable, really. I tell you, the support we've had, the other participants' support, their friendship, their values really means a great deal to us, and it's certainly, I tell you, it's undescribable. And Etienne, thank you very much. You're an excellent partner. Thank you.
First in the special tasks and third in the team spirit, added together to make the Spaniards the winners of the 1994 Camel Trophy, 11 years after they first started trying. Second, and in spite of a few disasters in the special tasks, were the two Brits, Mark Cullum and Damien Taft. Leaders almost all the way through the special tasks, the Swiss ended up third overall. Last in the special tasks and ninth in the Team Spirit Award, the Scandinavians never challenged for the lead, but having Crystal Persson on the convoy changed the face and feel of Camel Trophy for good.
Better self-confidence, and I've learned a lot about being with people, working in a group, and about myself, a lot. Yesterday I was really depressed. I felt so empty because it's over. I really don't want to go home, so it's meant a lot. It's hard to describe in words, but it's been great fun, and you've been living very close together to all these people, and then it's going to be very strange just to say goodbye and go home and you start your normal life again.